Hello and welcome to today's session. As always, I'm your host, Kevin Grote, Staff Systems Engineer here at VMware. Today, we're going to be talking about what I consider to be a bit of an unsung hero inside of the management space, and that's LogInsight. LogInsight has seen some significant changes in usability and enhancements from an administrative perspective. For those of you that aren't familiar with what LogInsight does, you may already be familiar with vRealize Operations Management. vRealize Operations Management focuses on what you would consider to be structured data. Speeds, feeds, performance, capabilities, how long you can continue to run things at the rate that you're running them. Whereas LogInsight focuses largely on unstructured data. Access points, things that are happening inside of the log files at the actual host systems. Together, they create a holistic view of your entire infrastructure. LogInsight is also part of vRealize Operations Insight. And when we take operations and LogInsight together, we have a clear bicameral approach to not only the structured data within the infrastructure, but also the unstructured data that exists inside of the log files and content of the systems themselves. Today, we're going to be looking at the usability enhancements that we have now inside of LogInsight. So with that, let's get started. So as we look at the changes that we're making in here to vRealize LogInsight, there's a couple real key changes that I'm personally very excited about. The ability for MultiFunction Charts and visualization snapshots. So what's a multifunction chart? Well, it's pretty easy to build a visualization today. You issue a query and select a chart type. But as a user, I might like to be able to compare different aggregations with having to switch screens back and forth. For example, I might want to compare the volume of requests against a metric that measures latency. So now I can include two aggregated functions into a single dashboard visualization. That's our multifunction chart. And now if let's say I'm in the view and I want to issue a query, I may want to add a field or tweak it a bit, which would change the visualization. What if I'd like to go back and compare these visualizations side by side? Well, that is where we get into snapshot visualization, where before you'd be saving a query, but it wouldn't be static. It would be constantly changing. So if we look at the multifunction charts, this is where we come into that aggregate, where we want to look at things over time, we want to measure different metrics together and create that interactive analysis. So this gives us the ability to add an additional function to a chart simply by clicking the add sign down in the lower left. Then we can drop in as many functions as we need so that we can create more sophisticated views. But then if we look at the snapshot visualization, we can click the camera icon to create a snapshot. Now, this is where it's much different. So if we're looking at a snapshot of a query, we can take a snapshot of the current query and time range in vRealize LogInsight for quick viewing or to save it to a dashboard. Snapshots can be taken from the Interactive Analytics page or IA page. A snapshot saves the log messages available within the time range at the moment you take the snapshot. So after you take a snapshot, click it and you can actually return back to the query when you looked at the snapshot. So it really is a frozen moment in time for your unstructured data. If you want to save one or more snapshots, you can add them to an existing dashboard or create a new dashboard of a specific moment in time in the environment. So the snapshot visualization allows us to store a visual history, not only of what we saw, but also of the query results that were driving that data. We can compare multiple visual bookmarks, and unlike saving a query, snapshots preserve the query time range chosen. And we also have the ability to save all snapshots to a dashboard using the gear icon to the left of the visualization. In environments where we have bicameral administration, it's often beneficial to be able to share the query with someone else. In 2.5, we had a big long link that we had to share out. But now inside of LogInsight 3, we have automatically shortened friendly URLs for ease of sharing and reference inside of documentation and correspondence. Another great set of features is highlighting and colorizing. So we can now find an event and we can choose to highlight events like this event so that we can quickly identify similar event types right within the Events tab. So here we are inside of Interactive Analytics. We can locate an event and then go in and highlight events like this so that we can see how often this particular type of event is occurring. When we're talking about unstructured data, it's less like finding a needle in a haystack and more like finding needles in a needle stack, because everything looks the same and it's very hard to determine which one you're after. But with highlighting, it's going to make it much easier for us as humans to interact with such complex information and be able to zero in on it in a meaningful way. In addition to highlighting events, we can also colorize event types, allowing us to quickly identify distinct event types right inside of the Events tab and Interactive Analysis. All of these things mean that whether we're talking about bicameral administration or we're talking about singular administration, we have a clear way to zero in not only on structured data within vRealize operations, or we can also leverage vRealize LogInsight to be able to give us as much detail as possible so that we can then open the analysis inside of vRealize Operations Manager and drive quickly to resolution. I'd like to thank you again for taking time to join me today. Hopefully you found this content valuable. LogInsight's a fantastic tool and one that needs to be brought up into conversation more often, simply because it allows us to close the loop on the holistic approach that we have to monitoring infrastructure. Its capabilities and integrations with vRealize operations make it a seamless choice for ubiquitous information access. Whether you're talking about a single point of administration, multiple points of administration, for infrastructures of all shapes and sizes. Be sure to reach out to your local teams for more information on LogInsight, vRealize Operations Management, vSOM and vRealize Operations Insight, and all of the other fantastic technologies that you've been hearing about in our conversations. And as always, have a fantastic day. I look forward to talking to you again really soon.